Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to talk to you about two books that I read kind of mid-October, end of October, that I found quite unsettling. We are obviously past the Halloween period now, but it could be one that you put on your radar for next year, one that you just read just in general if you're interested like in these themes. So the first book I read was Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. I finished this on the 13th of October, and then the other one was this book, The Midnight King, which I started around maybe the 30th of October or something and finished at the beginning of November. So I'll talk about this one first. This one was, I gave this 3 stars in the end, and I think the reason for giving it 3 stars is honestly because I found the content so deeply disturbing that I was like, do I like this? I don't know. So this book, I first heard about it through looking at the kind of Bloody Scotland shortlist and prize winners and stuff like that. I first read something called The Malt Whiskey Murders, and I didn't like that. I think I've already spoken about that in a video, so if I have, I'll link it up above. But this one I was really excited for, and it had so many reservations on the library as well, so I was like, okay, I feel like it could be good. And then, again, by luck, by chance, I think, no, was this, I think I'm talking about Hungerstone. But I also, no, I think I'd reserved this and this just finally came through. But, so it says on the blurb, like, this book is about, like, Lucas Cole and his son, Nathan. So Lucas Cole is a renowned writer. He writes in the area of crime and thriller, and he has died, and his son Nathan, it basically tells you that Lucas Cole was also a serial killer. Obviously no one else knew that but his family. To everyone else he was just a very popular crime fiction writer. So Lucas Cole has died, he has killed himself, so his son Nathan returns back to his hometown, and I think he like goes to like his dad's old place and he finds the manuscript for a book titled The Midnight King. It is not obviously this book, it's obviously very meta though, but at the same time there is also a young girl that has gone missing. So the premise is that the dad has taken one last victim, but now he has killed himself, so like where is this girl, and how do we find this girl? That is just basically the kind of first 25% of the book. The rest, oh my god. But yeah, this book was so dark, it was so twisted, it was really, really unsettling. And in the beginning there is a note from Lucas Cole himself where he's talking about like the manuscript and like people writing about crime fiction and how like, you know, when you write about these topics, actually in particular crimes against children seem to be the most like deeply disturbing, the most dark. So that is acknowledged, and I think that's what makes this really dark. And what makes it really dark is obviously like Lucas Cole has a family, so he has the son Nathan and he also has a daughter, so we're also looking at the impact of their lives, knowing what they knew about their dad, because again it does say in the blurb, so this isn't a spoiler, that I think he finds out when he's like 10 years old or something. Yeah, it says he has known the truth about his father since he was 10, so you're very well aware that they knew. So it's like growing up knowing that your dad is a serial killer, and you don't get much in terms of the past, in terms of like what their actual life was like, and you know, living through that day to day. But you can see between the two characters, the two children, that they are very deeply scarred. So this takes place from the perspective of Nathan, Isaac, who is Nathan's friend from high school, but he also is a retired or rather let go detective and is now a private investigator. So he has been asked by the family of the missing child to help find the child. And then you're also within this getting the manuscript, so The Midnight King, you're hearing from Lucas kind of this fictionalized account of the things that he has done. So it's really, really interesting. You're getting these different perspectives, and I never felt like they were boring. They were always coming in at the right time. It's just the whole thing was deeply, deeply unsettling, and the whole thing was deeply depressing. The way it was written, I felt like it really captured the atmosphere of whatever location it was in America that it was trying to capture. It felt dingy, it felt dark, it felt like so much life had been sucked out of like that area and all of those people. Like it didn't feel great. But yeah, despite it being like really unsettling, I enjoyed it. But like I said, I gave it 3 stars because I was like, how much do I enjoy this? And I think it is deeply because like of learning of the different, like, I guess kind of like traumas of the individual people, and from the serial killer himself, like the thing that he was trying to do, it was so perverse. It was just so weird. It stemmed from a very like innocent place, but obviously the end result is really, really horrible. So you're also just kind of like having to grapple with that as well. So very interesting book. I want to pick up more from this author, but it definitely was a book that like made me think, and I would have to like just sometimes put it down and be like, I'm gonna leave that for a little bit. So the second book I want to talk about is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. I believe I heard about this through the kind of Goodreads, maybe it was just ahead of October reads that, for the season. And I'm so glad that I picked this one up. This is the one that I did mention, I think, in my recent video talking about like library hauls and book hauls. I just snapped it up off the display because I was like, I want to read this. I'm already in the queue. And yeah, I gave this 4 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this. I said in the video that, I picked it up because of the theme of kind of, women desire, like hungering for more. But this book, delved into that and so much more. So it's kind of a loose retelling of the myth Carmilla, not something I'd ever heard of before. It is a sapphic romance, and it's just brilliant. So good. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I borrowed it from the library, but I'm going to purchase a copy of my own because I really, really liked it. But I think I'm just going to wait to see what the paperback cover looks like first. But this book is about a woman named Lenora, and she's married to a man named Henry, and they have recently moved to a place in the Peak District. And basically her job is to like get the house ready because he wants to I'm laughing because I'm remembering what happens. He wants to like have people round, like a hunting kind of party or whatever. This is set against, like, it has a backdrop of the Industrial Revolution, so that's what her husband does. He owns like a factory, and that's how he's like kind of made his money. And as they're kind of traveling to this house, they come across a woman in an accident, and they decide to take her in. And it is from then that they just, I guess, the atmosphere in the house changes. Lenora's kind of attitude changes. Her interactions with Carmilla kind of really bring on, like, stir up a lot in her, and she can't kind of understand why she has like this kind of like desire and repulsion to Carmilla. So it's like really, really interesting because she's obviously meant to be like the thing that Lenora has secretly like called in, and help her kind of break free from this like life she is confined to. So it is really fascinating because Lenora is just kind of concerned with like getting the house ready, and it's always just like, oh, it's so busy and so stressful, like trying to do all these things at the house and all of that kind of stuff, and you're just kind of like, okay. But I imagine, like, back then it actually kind of was, because they are getting workmen in and all of these sorts of things. But really the other aspects of it that are unfolding is kind of making sure she's a good wife and they're both putting on a good like face when they go outside. So there is a scene where she visits her husband's factory, and it's kind of the first sense that she gets of like things perhaps like being amiss in her husband's world. And actually, I think just actually getting to see a little bit more of what goes on when you're not in the kind of privileged side of society. But the other very kind of interesting layer about Lenora, which you find out in the book, is like she didn't actually always come from this world. She also has had a kind of very tragic childhood, and that is explained in the book, and that is also quite sad. But yeah, it's just the aspects of when she's with Carmilla, who's really kind of like egging her on and just making her think like, what is it that you desire? What is it that you think is going on here? What is it that like you actually want to say? What do you want to do? And I guess I didn't actually realise that this book was a horror book until like, I don't know, I was reading a page, one of the chapters, and I was just like, this is kind of creepy. And I had to be like, let me just look up the genre for this book again. And then when I did, I was like, okay. So for once in my life, I was like, okay, I see like how a book can be quite unsettling. Because I remember I was reading it and I was like, whoa, this is like making me feel really unsettled. But I really enjoyed the reading experience of this. I thought like the writing, the pacing, everything was absolutely perfect. And I just really loved how it has this like undertone of kind of like women's desire and kind of breaking free from like the expectations of you. I won't obviously talk about the end or anything that happens here, but it is absolutely fantastic. In some ways, like, this book reminds me of the film Night Bitch. I know Night Bitch is actually a book, but I've not read the book. But it is in that sense as well, of just like devouring women, just really like stepping into that power and that kind of deep kind of fierce undercurrent of power and just like anger that's there as well. So I thought it touched on some very, very fantastic themes and topics. And then, yeah, in terms of the myth and the kind of like retelling aspect, obviously I've never read the original, but I am very intrigued to read it now because I did do some research around it in terms of just when it was written and how, I guess, like queer coded it was, but it wasn't incredibly explicit. And I'm just so intrigued now to actually read that. And obviously now, me knowing from that perspective, I can kind of see where the kind of codes are. So yeah, those are my two books that I want to recommend if you're kind of into books that are kind of, yeah, going to feel quite like unsettling, and you might have to like, you know, put them down for a little bit. Hungerstone wasn't unsettling in the same way The Midnight King was. Like, I didn't feel the subject matter made you feel like it was, you know, quite depraved. But the way it writes about kind of the body and like different things happening, there are like very creepy scenes of things that they come across when they're out, and like women doing like other things, you know. So it's unsettling in that sense. There is, you know, a bit of like blood and stuff like that. Whereas The Midnight King just felt very depraved. But yeah, so those are two books that I've thoroughly enjoyed recently, especially because for me they're outside of my usual genre that I would read, but I've really, really enjoyed them. So I think I spoke about in one of my kind of a few videos back about kind of what my reading year had been like so far and how I like really wanted to improve that, and I really do feel like Hungerstone has definitely helped with that. Midnight King as well, but it's kind of sometimes in the same genre of things I read, but I don't tend to read too much like thriller books. But Hungerstone, definitely 4 stars for me. I was like, I want to read more of this. I was trying to find more books that are like in that vein. I haven't quite found ones that I feel will be as interesting for me, but I am willing to try more. So if you have read Hungerstone and you have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments below. But that is it for today's video. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in another one. Bye.